Welcome to What is Rich Live. I'm your co-host, Jerome D. Love, and I'm really excited to be here with this project, co-host of What is Rich, and and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Rashawn McDonald. Rashawn, thank you so much for all that you do and for being here today, and thank you so much for helping to make this project a success and bringing us here today. So introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. First of all, we have two great guests that we have coming over the show. It's not about just me and you. You know, You founded a Black Expo, Texas Expo, 24 years ago, correct? And you're NAACP Image Award winner for Black Money Tree, your podcast. You know, so we like to believe that the things that we've done in our lives will be able to be tools of opportunity for people who watch the show. But not only us, but it's going to be the people we invite on the show. And today we have two incredible people that have taken their time on a Saturday to come on our live show. That's Shawn A. Taylor. Quick little note about him. You have a background, a relationship with Shawn, right?
Yeah, no, when we had our expo, I believe it was 2018, I met Shawn and I reached out to him and I asked him to be co-chair of our summer celebration. And he agreed to it. And it was an amazing event. He's always been so generous with his knowledge. I mean, a very accomplished man. At one point was the largest African-American owner of Taco Bell franchises, and then later became limited partner for the Houston Astros. So he's
Don't
done
give away too many credits, man. That's part of your intro. Come on,
part of it. I'm sorry, man. But he's done some amazing things, and he's always generous with his knowledge and trying to help others. And I think that's really the spirit of What is Rich Live and the docuseries. It's really to empower others to be able to build wealth, because building wealth and being able to take care of yourself is a key to you being able to take care of those in your community, your family, and others. So now, you mentioned me being an NAACP Image Award winner. We ain't gonna act like this award right there ain't right behind us, that Emmy Award or that NAACP over in that corner. You have two Emmys, right?
Yeah, two
Emmys. NAACP Image Awards. Tell the people a little bit about yourself and what you've done.
A lot of people know me, Steve Harvey. I managed Steve Harvey from 2000 to 2016. We did Family Feud together. We created the Steve Harvey Morning Show together, the talk show, Steve Harvey Talk Show together. We did both movies with Will Packer that starred Kevin Hart, Think Like a Man, Think Like a Man 2, which was #1 at the box office. I'm blessed to have my name on those movie projects, as well as the whole process of changing people's lives with the neighborhood awards. And so I like to believe that in that relationship we were critical to the election and re-election of President Obama through our Steve Harvey Morning Show platform. So it's really important that we understand that the information we're bringing on this show and the people we're bringing on this show change lives.
Yeah.
They empower people. They educate people.
All right. So our first guest, I already kind of gave away a little bit of the intro. Tremendous entrepreneur, businessman. He was part owner, limited partner for the Houston Astros. He was instrumental of bringing Zaxby's to Texas. At one point was the largest African-American Taco Bell franchisee. And he currently serves as a trustee for Purdue University, Mr. Shawn A. Taylor. Shawn, thank you so much for joining us on What is Rich Live.
Thank you, brothers, and I'm delighted to be here. And thank you for having me.
Well, I see put you behind you. I think you're a smiling man. This is live. So at least, pump your chest before the game starts. Come on now, Shawn.
All right, the Boilermakers. I'm pulling for the Boilermakers. We got a tough match tonight against Arizona, but I've got confidence we can pull it out. Coach Painter, who's a brilliant coach, and the team has been clicking on all cylinders since the Big Ten championship. So hoping we can pull it out, come home to Indianapolis for the Final Four, and win the ultimate game and be the national champions here at home.
Cool.
Awesome. So now, Shawn, you and I have talked pretty regularly over the last couple of weeks, and your episode of What is Rich is through the roof, hands down. So we had to have you on here. If you ask me, I think it's because of your story. You have a very compelling story. Southside of Chicago. People think of Southside of Chicago. They don't think ownership of Houston Astros, owning franchises. So what was it that inspired you? And what was the key to you coming out of that environment to get to the levels of success that you attain?
I get asked that question quite a bit, and the answer was always simple. And it started with people who believed in me. They saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. And I'm really thankful that I didn't question it. I trusted it. And more importantly, I had the courage to grab hold and take the chance. And at one point in my life, when I was deciding coming out of Purdue, my last semester, whether or not I was going to return to Chicago to start my career or move to Dallas, it was a sequence of events that I was able to link together over my entire life up until that point, which I was 21. Everything that I participated in, whether it was sports, the Boys and Girls Club, any kind of community work, took me further and further away from home. And so I paid attention. I listened to the individuals that were influential in my life, particularly my mother. And at the end of the day, I said, why not? And here it is, 40-something years later. People told me, man, you ought to come back to Chicago. I said, you're crazy. I'll never live in a cold climate again. And as of October 25, 2025, I relocated to Indianapolis. And my friends go, Indianapolis? It's been a delightful change for me. But the work that I'm doing at Purdue University as a trustee has been so compelling. And it has pulled me here that, again, I've just not been able to turn it down. And the one thing I don't do is I don't fight what feels natural in my life. And it was like breathing. It just felt natural and the right thing to do. And so far, it has exceeded my expectations, just like every other little to major change that has happened in my life on a positive scale.
So let me stay right there real quick. Purdue University has been very instrumental in your development, the Bob program.
Correct.
How does that feel for a university that's given you so much? Now you're in a position where you can give back to the university. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, Jerome, I've always talked about, in fact, I had a really strong conversation with you in one of my former offices about scale, if you recall. That people in general, it's not just, Black people or Hispanic people, male or female. I find that people in general think really small when it comes to their lives. And when I was appointed to the board, which, by the way, it wasn't anything I campaigned for. I didn't even know I was being considered. And I tell this story all the time. Had they asked me, I would have turned it down because it's a lot of work, and I've underestimated the amount of work that's required. It's a very public role because it's a public, it's a state university, and I'm fairly private. And number three, it doesn't pay. And I got to a point in my life, I said, I'm tired of doing free boards. But I can tell both of you in your audience today, it would have been one of the biggest mistakes that I could have ever made. And so when I talk about scale, I'm talking about one of the top universities in the country, probably in the world, to be honest with you, especially if we're talking about STEM-related programs. That my thinking and what I'm doing here today is about a time period where I will no longer be on the planet, that I will have taken my last breath. And that's the type of work that I'm attempting to do today is legacy work. Not about being successful, but about being significant. And to be in a position to have that type of impact on, I can't even throw a number out there, it's so big, but to be able to have that kind of impact on people's lives is important to me.
Cool. Shawn, this is Shawn speaking. When I look at you, and I always hear the word, a person who doesn't have fear. I use the word doesn't have fear because fear stops a lot of people.
Right.
Changing a job, a marriage, or moving out of a different city, or moving out of the house. The word fear, and people who are listening, people who are watching, talk about how you avoid that word, and if it comes into your life, how you beat it.
Well, I'll start with a simple foundation, and that word is change. When I was a sophomore at Purdue, many of you, particularly you, know George Duke, the vocalist and musician. He had a song called Sunshine. And I'd listened to
Yes.
this song 100 times. And I was getting dressed in my room, and the song came. For the first time, I listened to the words. And a couple of the phrases in that song was, change is the most natural thing in life. And I stopped and I really thought about that. And I realized, for the first 19, 20 years of my life, I fought change. I resisted change. I wanted consistency. I wanted the illusion of control. And from that moment forward, I stopped fighting change. I embraced change. I welcome change. And I really put effort forward to anticipate what might be coming that could alter my life, positively or negatively. So what that has enabled me to do, or empowered me to do, is to blow through my fears and to also recognize what I call fear is false expectations appearing real. The majority of the time, what we are afraid of is in our head, in our mind. In our mind, our imagination controls everything we do. And so I try not to give it, and I use the word try, I try not to give it power over my thought process and over my actions, realizing that it's just a state of discomfort because I'm moving out of something that I already know and that I'm familiar with. But I will tell you this, I was a bit fearful about moving here.
Right.
But it didn't stop me, and I'm glad that it didn't. Because, like I said, being here has exceeded all my expectations by a long, long mile. So,
okay, cool. Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Here, Shawn, I grew up in a Black neighborhood like you, Fifth Ward, Houston, Texas. And it wasn't until I went to college that my world became integrated. I went to University of Houston.
Yes.
And it changed my life. I always tell people, if you have a chance to go to college, just go to college. There's so many options, and it takes you down to so many relationships and so many different lanes. Well, I suddenly was thrown into a world where I didn't see a lot of people like me. And that is your world.
Yes.
And I have to bring that up because I always tell people about this, is that I've been Black all my life. And so that means that when I walk in a room, I can't suddenly become a person that I'm not stereotyped to believe somebody thinks who I am by the color of my skin. With that being said, you've been in a lot of environments that people have questioned you because of the color of your skin, questioned why you are there, questioned why we're doing business with you. How do you, as a business person and as a man, overcome those situations or deal with those situations?
I hate to repeat the phrase, I really try to keep it simple. I don't get caught up in the circumstances. That's their problem. Now, if they do something to make it my problem, then I'll deal with it. But the important thing, first of all, is knowing what you want to do. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And then being able to assess what's required in that process. So I'll give you a good example. When I was in the process of buying my first batch of Taco Bell restaurants, I found out that I was competing against 3 existing franchisees, and one of them was probably the most profitable operator in the system. They had 70 stores. And, if it was about money, there's no way I would have been able to compete.
Right.
But I knew that it wasn't. It was going to be more than that. But I also knew it was tilted in his favor. 1, he was a known quantity. 2, he had the resources. And 3, he was a proven operator. I mean, I worked in the McDonald's for about a month in the drive-thru. I was a really good cashier. I didn't stand up against his. So if I lost the deal, this was the proposition for me. If I lost the deal, I'm going to lose the deal on economics. Not because of the color of my skin. Now, did I believe that was a factor? Absolutely. And I think I mentioned this in the last interview we had almost a year ago. I started thinking about the possible solutions to what could be a problem. And one of the solutions was a letter of recommendation from a prominent businessman in Dallas, Texas. I was living in Dallas at the time, and my stores ended up being in Houston. And this gentleman wrote a letter to his best friend, who happened to be the chairman CEO of PepsiCo, which owned Taco Bell at the time. And I do believe that letter helped to level. We always talk about level playing field. It
Yes, sir.
helped level the playing field so that if I put together an offer that I could finance, which that was a no-brainer because I'd already had a commitment for the financing, and that I could bring along an operating partner that they believe could do the job, that if I put forth the best deal, then there's no reason why I shouldn't get it.
You know, Shawn, let's stay right there because I want to dig deep into that. The book that you always talk about, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? Reginald Lewis bought that the printing company of the first company that he bought for, I believe, $100,000 out of his pocket. Then bought Beatrice International for about $1 million out of his pocket, which was $1 billion company.
It was actually 400,000. Well, I take that back. You're right. There are two steps in there that you missed. One was like a patio furniture company in California.
Yes.
They had a deal signed, and when he went out there to meet the owner killed the deal when he saw him.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, there was a breakup fee of several $100,000. So he took that money and then bought McCall Pattern Company.
Yes, that was it.
You make clothes from. And that was a $21 million deal. He put $400,000 into himself, but he owned the vast majority of the business, and then sold it 3 or 4 years later and walked away with $60+ million. And then went out and bought Beatrice, which was about a $2 billion revenue business at the time.
Yeah.
So that book was recommended to me and by a gentleman who was originally going to be my partner. And I knew about it. I just didn't know. I assumed it was about diversity. I said, I don't need to read about being Black in America anymore. And he said, do me a favor, read it. I started reading it around Christmas, 1995. 300 and something page book. I read it in a week, and this was working, 10, 12 hours a day. I'd come home and read till I fell asleep. And that book became my playbook for the Taco Bell acquisition. In the hurdles, I use that as reference.
And that's what I was going to say. Your model, I want you to go through that deal structure. You got 19 Taco Bells with $110,000 out of your own pocket.
Right.
Walk me through that deal structure. How did you make that happen? How was that structured?
Well, interestingly enough, the premise of my business case was to create a new economic reality for Black ownership. Mm-hmm. And my goal originally was to have all Black investors.
Right.
I had a list of about 50 people, all capable of writing some form of, a check to invest.
Mm-hmm.
I just had limited success.
Right.
And one gentleman who was a former franchisee, this was in Dallas, who I was playing golf with, I shared my book with him, book being the business plan. And instead of him being interested in investing, he was interested in paying me off and taking the deal.
Wow.
So I kindly told him no thank you and moved on. And a banker that I had met who was at a large financial institution went and joined a startup and told me about this startup and the owner of that company, and that I may want to talk to him. I sent them my business plan. He flew to Houston. I flew down. We met at a Hyatt hotel in their restaurant. Within 30 minutes, we had a handshake deal, about $15, $16 million in capital, debt and equity. And that's how the deal got done.
Wow. So, Rashawn, I'm going to turn it over to you for the last question. This was powerful. We do have another guest, but go ahead, Rashawn.
I know Lisa Little is coming up, Queen of AI. But I'm going to tell you, this is maybe a funny story, because when Steve Harvey and I, we was in Los Angeles, and we wanted to get into the franchise business. And so we went to our favorite franchise we used to go to all the time, for lunch all the time. And so we met with the owners and everything, and it was real popular in Los Angeles. In fact, they've now syndicated locations throughout the country. And when they sat down, Shawn, we thought buying one location, millions of dollars of revenue, personal revenue. And then she said, well, you'll probably make anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a month. And we went, hold on. All that work and you're going to profit $10,000 to $15,000 right there. We could not fathom. So there's a misconception about the amount of revenue that can be made. And I'm not saying that that's the number, because revenue can be based on the location and also the amount of people that come into your place. But that was a number. And so is that why when you get in the franchising business, you have to have a large number, or you have to do multiple locations to generate the revenue you expect to make when you have these franchises?
Well, I think it's a personal decision. For me, I already had a good job.
Okay.
If I, like most people have gotten into franchise over the decades, they started with one location.
Right.
For a period of time, that's all you could do. And so for me, that was a job. I already had a good job. I didn't want another job. I wanted to be in a position where I could create infrastructure, I could create jobs, I could create opportunities. I could even build stores in communities that look like ours. You went to U of H. The second store that I built was in Third Ward. The first store I built was in Missouri City. And interestingly enough, the Third Ward location at OST and Scott was turned down by another franchisee because he read the crime report data, not realizing that there was a housing, well, we called them projects in Chicago,
right?
Close to the freeway, but missed that it was a very prosperous community, a strong blue collar neighborhood. When you got up to the university, a lot more, affluent community. That location, my last year that I was a franchisee, did almost $1.8 million in sales, which the national average was just under 1.2. And my cash flow on that store was several six figures, that one location.
Congratulations.
So for me, the title is What is Rich? I did not want to be rich. Rich means I'm getting up every morning and I'm grinding every day. And for me, that would mean I'm working 6-7 days a week. I wanted to ultimately put myself in a situation where financial independence, which I define as work because you want to, not because you have to. And that means accumulating wealth, whether it be, rental property, generating income and appreciating where you can refinance and take equity out. Jerome knows this very well, to buy more properties or, diversify your holdings or just, start a stock bond portfolio and live off the capital gains and interest income. And that's ultimately where I wanted to be. And for me, that was at age 45. I sold my Taco Bells and I missed age 45 by 6 months. I was very disappointed.
Awesome.
But ultimately, it was about being able to have generational impact. And I can firmly say today with 100% confidence, the work that I do to give back, I would not be able to do and do at the level that I do it if I had to work every day for a living, because I would not be able to make the time commitment. And I definitely wouldn't have relocated back to the Midwest. And those are some of the things that I've been able to, take advantage of. So it was about creating scale. It was about not having a single source of income. It was about ultimately those assets growing in value like a stock. You mentioned you have a professional coming on in the technology industry. If you look at NVIDIA, how that stock's exploded, and had you put $100,000, it'd be worth 7 figures today. Well, that's creating wealth.
Right.
And as long as you hold it for more than a year, you get favorable tax treatment on it. So when I sold my company, capital gains the tax rate was 15%. So I was able to keep more of the money that I made off the transaction of selling my business. But it was all about creating wealth. And a lot of people don't understand the difference between being rich and being wealthy. And so that's the message that I try to get out there to students in particular, and now to your audience.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Shawn, man. It has been a pleasure. For those that want to find out more about you, you have any social media handles, anything that you want to share before we move on?
Well, they seem to be able to find me when you've been posting these clips. I've had a few people say, hey, would you answer your message? I'm trying to, this is new to me. I'm trying to catch up on this stuff. So y'all be patient with me. I've been trying to click accept on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn account is going up. I've gotten a bunch of followings and messages on Instagram, which I don't remember. I think it's Shawn AT71 on Instagram.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I don't know what it is on Facebook, but
this is going to play back in the digital world. We're going to put all the necessary handles.
Yes,
to
on the
help my
screen.
brother out. Help my brother out. Okay? Help my brother out. Again, Shawn, man, go
My
Purdue
pleasure.
Boilermakers, brother. To victory.
Thank you very much. Boiler out.
Thank you, man. Thank
Thank
you.
you.